welcome to Radio Tonga's and Television Tonga's news package for tonight. Making headlines, His Majesty King Naboda VI arrives safely in Ewa today. The Farm Warrior presented 1,000 Pa'anga assistance to the residents of Hapai and new water machines supplies for the residents of Holonga. These are more stories later on in this bulletin. I'm Fatai Whainga'a with your news for tonight. His Majesty King Naboda VI arrived safely at the Kawhana Airport in Ewa this morning. His official visit is to inspect his estate of Homa in Ewa and other works. The Lord Chamberlain Viela Tupo confirmed this to Radio and Television Tonga News this morning, saying that His Majesty's return to Nuku'alofa is yet to be confirmed. Meanwhile, Radio and Television Tonga stringer in Ewa, Setaleki Tukia, says His Royal Highness Prince Ata is also in the island. He says Ewa's government representative, Donga Whaiamani, the two district officers and others officiated at the Kawhana Airport to welcome His Majesty and Prince Ata to the island, then headed to the Heilala Tangtangi Palace in Ta'anga, Ewa. Many traditional presentation of gifts or ha'unga were also presented to His Majesty, together with a prayer service carried out by the locals. The Government of Tonga's Committee for the National Emergency Management Office, or NEMO, has been conducting regular dialogues with the development partners and the media ever since the Cyclone Ian became an imminent threat to the Hapai groups. Heads of missions and government officials from the Australian and New Zealand government in Tonga have been providing immediate support to the government's committee chaired by the Deputy Prime Minister, Honourable Sami Vaipulu, throughout the situation and emergency response process. The Honourable Prime Minister Lord Divano on January 15th addressed the situation in Hapai, providing support and encouragement to the people of the islands, emphasising that the success of the response process have been well enabled by the outpour of support received from overseas governments. The Honourable Prime Minister thanked first responders from the New Zealand, the Australian and French governments for providing aerial surveillance support and special chartered flights to Hapai to assist in the response and relief efforts. The people in Hapai are in full swing with all effort they can make to recover as soon as they can. Our reporter Emma Jane Vea is currently in Mo'ungaone but was in Ha'ano yesterday, filed this report.
Residents in the Ha'ano district in Hapai are struggling to get back on their feet after it was severely hit by Tropical Cyclone Ian. Ha'ano is made up of 4 towns, which are Muitoa, Ha'ano, Pukutala and Whakakakai. The Ha'ano district officer, 60-year-old Viram Habea, says there are 30 families residing on the island, or more than 30 families, and all of them have suffered from the cyclone one way or another. There are only 2 government primary schools on the island which were both damaged by the cyclone. Plans are underway to provide a temporary housing for students as the start of school nears. There are 7 church buildings on the island, whereas 2 were completely collapsed or crushed during the cyclone, and others suffered much damage, such as broken windows, damaged roofs and walls. Despite the damage, the various congregations, such as the Free Wesleyan Church of Tonga, the Church of Tonga, the Seventh-day Adventist Church and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, went ahead with their normal services on Sunday. The Free Wesleyan Church General Secretary, Reverend Dr. Bebita Hazea, led their service, while the former President of the Church of Tonga, Reverend Dr. Seke Mahi, led their service at Whakakakai. Speaking to various residents on the island, they all share similar stories on how terrified they were when the cyclone hit them, which they described as noisy, loud, and it was blowing debris, uprooting trees and tearing off roofs, walls and doors of houses, and even destroying complete houses. The extent of the damage in Ha'ano varies from bad to extremely bad, displacing almost all of the families on the island. The main source of income here is handicraft, agriculture and fisheries, whereas all have been destroyed in the cyclone. The Ha'ano district officer says it will take a long time before plantations recover from this disaster. This has also destroyed the main source of food and water for residents who now have to look to government, foreign aid, churches, remittances and other sources for help. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister Sami Vaipulu led a team to Ha'ano on Saturday bringing boxes of aid from the New Zealand Rotary Club in collaboration with the government-led emergency relief team and other stakeholders such as the Tonga Red Cross. The boxes contain kitchen supplies, bedding, water and other necessities which were distributed accordingly. Mr. Baigulu also toured the island to assess the damage and how best to help the island recover from this disaster. The NEMO-led team also included a group from the Tonga Red Cross, Ministry of Health and other volunteers. Dr. Bentimani Koloniaki from the Ministry of Health says their team is made up of the doctor, nurses, health officers and health inspectors. They were there to look at sanitation, the risk of waterborne diseases and other things. While on the island, the health officers also sprayed around the home, killing flies and mosquitoes, and this method is called vector control, which minimizes the risk of dengue and other illnesses. Health officers also treated the water tanks, which serves as drinking water for households, in order to ensure the water is safe for consumption. So far, the island has received various donations from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, government and other foreign aid, and a team from the Free Western Church of Tonga is also there to carry out counselling. Although some steps have been made to help in the recovery process of the Ha'ano district, it's still unsure exactly how long it will take before the island fully recovers from a disaster of this degree. This coverage from the Ha'ano district in the Ha'apai Group of Islands was made possible with kind sponsors from the Queensland Tonga Rugby Union in collaboration with the Moentu Donita Belava Dental Clinic. Reporting from Ha'ano in the Ha'apai Group of Islands, I'm Emma Jane Bear for Television and Radio Tonga News.
Radio and Television Tonga reporter Emma Vea continue on to the island of Mo'ungaone and shares the site of the devastation caused by Tropical Cyclone Ian. She says houses were torn down by the cyclone. Whilst Emma Vea filed these reports, it's understood that assistance from the government and non-government organisations is still being distributed to the victims of Ian.
Assistance from the Government Emergency Relief Team and foreign NGOs has arrived on the island of Mo'ungaone in the Ha'apai Group of Islands. The Navy Defence vessel Boya Savea carried 24 survival kits from the Government Emergency Relief Team this morning to distribute to the 24 families residing on the island. Mo'ungaone is deemed to be the worst hit island from Tropical Cyclone Ian. In addition, the vessel also brings 24 food kits from the Adventist Development Relief Agency, or ADRA, which is based in New Zealand. This donation comes via the Seventh-day Adventist Church. According to a member from ADRA, Captain Doni Whanokalafi, this is the first such assistance to Tonga from the organization. The food kits are rationed to last 2 weeks and feed a family of 6. Yet that another team is carrying out similar donations to the Ha'ano district. Speaking to Radio and Television Tonga News, the Mo'ungaone Town Officer, Salesi Muli, says all 23 residential homes on the island were destroyed except for one. The only government primary school was also destroyed in the cyclone, including 2 churches. The people sought shelter in the Free Wesleyan Church Hall and the Church of Tonga Hall, which still stands, but it did suffer much damage. In terms of the water supply on the island, which is collected in water tanks, the town office says only 2 water tanks at the moment serves the whole island, as the rest are unfit for drinking, as it's mixed with seawater. Power on the island through solar, which was destroyed, leaving residents to rely on candles, kerosene lamps and torches, or whatever is available to them. The main source of income on the island for the residents are handicraft, agriculture and fishing. With handicraft and agriculture taken away in the cyclone, this leaves fishing as its main source of food. The residents of Mo'ungaone, like its Ha'ano families, are relying now on outside sponsors and donations for food, water and housing in the long run. One resident, 60-year-old Lolohea Vaka, cried as she shared her experience of the cyclone. Speaking to Radio and Television Tonga News, she said she was alone in her house with her grandchild when the house partially collapsed on them when the cyclone hit. and she had to crawl out and seek shelter elsewhere. Other residents also shared similar stories, and you can't help but be moved by these stories and just looking at the degree of the devastation that a Category 5 cyclone can cause. At the moment, defence officers from His Majesty's Armed Forces are helping in the cleanup activities on the island before the team departs from the island of Mo'ungaone later this afternoon. This coverage is made possible by the Queensland Tonga Rugby Union in collaboration with the Moen Sidoni Tapealava Dental Clinic. Reporting from Mo'ungaone from the Hawaii Group of Islands, I'm Emma Jane Vale for Radio and Television Tonga News.
It is important to collect the right data and information from the damages caused by Tropical Cyclone Ian in order for sufficient help to be delivered to the Hawaii Group of Islands to meet their pressing needs. This is according to the Deputy Director of Agriculture, Daniela Hoponoa, while speaking to Radio and Television Tonga News in Hawaii. Sinlatu tells you more.
A one-week survey to the agricultural sector in Hawaii is currently underway to inspect all damages caused by Tropical Cyclone Ian and to address the island's most pressing needs. The survey is carried out in collaboration with the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestries, Fisheries and Food and Food and Agricultural Organization, Mauri Tonga Trust, Tonga National Youth Congress and others. This survey will mainly look at the most pressing needs of farmers in Hawaii's agricultural sector, the machineries needed to revive plantations in the island and others. This is part of our long-term plan to ensure food security in the island. Mr. Hapono of the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestries, Fisheries and Food says this is to ensure that adequate assistance will be given to those that need it the most. This survey will be carried out to 11 islands and villages in Hawaii, including Uiha and Lofanga. Mauri Tonga Trust will carry out the same survey in the Lulunga district and some of the vulnerable islands in Vava'u. The survey will be completed by the end of this week. For Television Tonga News, I'm Sinilatu.
The Tofua Warrior rugby team at the end of the week donated 1,000 pa'anga to be offered as their help to the victims of Hawaii after Cyclone Ian battered the island. The chairman of the Tofua Warrior Committee, Alon Felemi, says they believe it's important that they share part of their cash prizes won from the Living Amalia Cup with those that are less fortunate. In the meantime, the Honourable Minister of Agriculture, Food, Forestry and Fisheries, Sengsta Saulala, handed over the shares of the 4 teams member from their prize at the Living Amalia tournament.
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture, Food, Forestry and Fisheries, Sengsta Saulala, handed over the shares of the rugby players from their won prizes. Speaking to Television Tonga News, the treasurer of the Tofua Rugby Committee, Moses Evaibulu, says a total of 48 shares was divided equally amongst the players. The Tofua team won a total prize of 20,000 pa'anga, 1,000 pa'anga from reading of the Bible verses and another 15,000 pa'anga for the second prize in the second division of the competition. The shares was divided equally amongst the players. Meanwhile, the Tofua rugby team's supporter, Inoki Halaifonua, expressed how happy he was for the effort made by the Warriors. This has been a joyous occasion for the residents of Tofua, and it highlights the importance for them to learn the Bible verses as a guideline through their youthful paths. In the meantime, the chairman of the Tofua Rugby Committee, Aloni Felemi, thanked the players' teamwork that made them qualify for the finals. We are very happy for what we've won so far, and I know that this is because our team chose to put God first in everything that we do. They also carried out a luncheon program to mark their great performances.
And that's the latest updates from the damages and people that were being affected by Tropical Cyclone Ian in Hawaii. But looking at other news items, the Population Report 2011, Volume 2 and 3, and the Demographic Survey 2012 report was this morning launched at the Fa'onelua Convention Centre. A copy of the report was presented to the Honourable Minister of Finance and National Planning, Isaac Eke. Linda Filiai tells you more.
The government statistician at the Atafinau handed over the report to the Honourable Minister of Finance and National Planning, Dr. Isake Valueke. Another copy of the same report was presented to the Australian High Commissioner, His Excellency Brett Eltham, Health Director Dr. Siale Agauola, and the President of the Church of Tonga, Reverend Dr. Tupulotu Katoanga. Speaking to radio and television Tonga News, Dr. Eke emphasized how significant this report is to the kingdom.
Oh, yes, it's very, very important that, and the national, the census done in 2011 actually produced a report, and that was lodged today, volume 2 and 3. And that will be important input into a development of our strategy from government side to address those issues that are emerging from those reports. And I think one of those issues, looking into our structure, our population structure, and I think it's quite obvious. I think we have high percentage in our youth range, but also have to look into aging part of our populations for some appropriate policy into it. So it's very vital, and we will incorporate and take them into account in development of policies for the next budget.
The Honourable Minister also marked the opening of Tonga Strategy for Development Statistic Workshop. Meantime, the statistician says it is important to know what government ministry needs as recorded on the statistic report. Representatives from the government ministry and other private sectors will raise issues regarding the information needed from the statistic report and how it might help them on the services they provided on a daily basis. In the vote of thanks from the National Consultant for Tonga Strategy for Development Statistic, Dr. Masaso Paunga, he emphasized the importance to have accurate and appropriate statistics. The Population Census Volume 2 and 3 was funded by the Australian government.
Our Call is to Work for the Lord is the theme of a spiritual retreat carried out by education leaders of Free Wesleyan Church of Tonga's Christian Education Department. The 3-day retreat was held during the weekend. Anasi Falicano reports.
The highlight of the program was extracted from the book of Jeremiah, chapter 1, verses 4 to 10, which reads, The president of the Free Wesleyan Church of Tonga, Reverend Dr. Ahio, in his keynote address, emphasized that everyone has an important role to play in all spiritual healing effort. He also shared the main challenges faced when trying to fulfill a leader's roles. The task that you're carrying out might sound easy, but it is not. It is a very difficult task being part of the Christian Education Department. It is a call from God to everyone, and therefore it should be not doubted, but to look at the future and move forward. That is the message, to look forward and move forward and forget about the past. Meanwhile, Reverend Siosio Atauataina from the Christian Education Department of the Free Wesleyan Church of Tonga told Television Tonga News that this retreat will boost the inner strengths of leaders. That is the main purpose of this program, to start with the Lord, for He will give us the spiritual strength from the Bible to guide us while working at the church at this new year. About 300 leaders from the Sunday School Department, prayer sessions, youth and evangelists participated at the program, which was held at Quinsalote College Hall. For Television Tonga News, I'm Manasi Falekaono.
A new water pump machine has been commissioned in the village of Holonga to help distribute water to the residents after facing inconsistent water supply for many years. This has been a problem solved thanks to assistance of the Funga Tufakafa Tongan Government Club of Australia.
Kapukawa of Holonga marking the commissioning of the new water supplies for the villagers. Speaking to Television Tonga News, the secretary of the Funga Tufakafa Club, David Tamatangi, says the donation was after many years of problems faced due to power disruptions. We have been facing these problems for many years. When the power is out, our water supply stopped and has caused problems at several homes. Meantime, the representative of the Funga Tufakafa Club, Sitiveni Ma'otofu from Australia, says the donation is to ensure the locals' basic needs are met. This is part of our initiative to ensure that needs of the locals are served at any time. Not only this machine distributes them water at any time, but it is also costless. The cost of the new machine, together with its shipment to Tonga, totaled at around more than 10,000 per anga.
The Ministry of Health Dental Ward, we're fortunate to receive a donation of more than 18,000 toothbrush and toothpastes from the Colgate Palmolive Limited of Fiji. The donation is to help promote oral health care of children, where part of it will be shipped to the island groups of Hapai. Fonoma Bekosa tells you more.
The donation was presented from the Chief Dental Officer of Viola, Dr. Amanaki Whakakaukaitau, to the Deputy Director of Education and Training, Ponepate Taunisila. Speaking to Television Tonga News, Mr. Taunisila says, abstaining from sugary food is important to ensure healthier teeth. Ministry of Education is delighted to receive such donation. I believe this is the best step ahead of a better future by building of better foundations. It is therefore important for the children to make a habit out of it. Meantime, a former dentist at the Tonga Dental Department, Dr. Ikanilatu, says there has been improvement in the standard of children's teeth compared to previous year. Improvements has been identified on children's teeth. This was the overall result carried out by a survey led by a pathologist in Viola, Dr. Fusi Fifita. An approach to help fight tooth cavities and decay is made possible through the help of the Mali Mali project, organized, co-funded by Viola's Dental Ward and its Japanese counterpart. This is Colgate Palmolive first donation to Tonga, aiming at promoting better oral health in schools and communities. For Television Tonga News, I'm Fononga Vikoso.
It's vital to maintain the production of handicraft with the local products to maintain its value and its strong connections to Tonga's history. This is the emphasis of handicraft projects currently underway in Nuku'alofa. A workshop was carried out to the local graft makers on the issue. Anasi Falikano tells you more.
The guest of honor at the program, Lady Tuna Fialakepa, presenting certificates to 19 participants of the handicraft workshop led by Lafonua Afafine Center. The program trained locals on how to create from the local materials. In the guest of honor's keynote address, Lady Tuna Fialakepa highlighted the importance of the issue. Today, everyone knows the making of handicrafts out of the local materials are more valuable than imported materials. This is because our traditional pandanus have been a hidden treasure that values a lot of money. She also commended that older women in the society who seem less able, that they can still capable of creating traditional handicraft items and make a living out of it. Recently, things have changed and many follow suit where we look at things differently, but this is important and we're trying to do things that are right. She encourages the participants to maintain and to continue creating handicrafts in Tonga, especially its developing state.
And that's the local news. Sport is up next with Sinlato.